Brendon Kleen. It is Monday, May 20th, and here's your cold open question. I'm going to break the fourth wall. I had something else prepped, something much more thoughtful. I'm just going to be blunt about it. How fucking good is basketball?
The playoffs, it's only the second round. We've already gotten like 3 classic series, it feels like. And we got a Game 7 that delivered on Sunday night. The Wolves come back, 30-point turnaround, and Anthony Edwards didn't even play that great. Like, this is all you could ask for. We got 2 more series on each side, and then the finals still to go. So I'm loving it. It's been an awesome postseason. The age of parity, Adam Silver has won. Adam Silver is the king, and we all bow down to him, I guess.
I don't want to go that far, but
we're going to have a different champion for, what is it now, going to be like a 6th straight year?
That's true. I don't want to like crown Adam Silver in part because I also I can't help but think of him every time I see the Emirates logo like digitally pushed onto the court, as I'm just like this man just really
Chris, you asked me how good basketball was,
okay.
Not some cynical thing about marketing. Give me some hype.
Okay. Every little thing Anthony Edwards did at the end of this game is why I love what the moment we are having with him right now, and like why this sport is amazing, and why it's amazing we get to see like their faces and see their reactions. This guy had like not a good game, probably his worst game of the playoffs, and he didn't give a shit. He just deep down, it probably bothers him, but this guy cares about winning. This guy cares about excitement. This guy cares about like his team delivering. And this guy, the whole game, is flying around the court, and at the end of the game, he's just waving at people. He's smirking. He's reveling in the moment. You could tell how much this means to him. Just seeing the despair of the Nuggets fans, just like not being
and not hearing anything from them as a symbol of that heartache.
No,
yeah,
it's like absolutely dead in there, like, and not knowing how to react. I mean, this game, and we're gonna get into this when we talk about it. It felt like this is the first game of the playoffs, Brendan, that I felt like a real Game 7. We've had some big games in these playoffs before. We had some like warm-up Game 7s, but
it felt like the first good Game 7 since 2016. I'm sure there were others that I'm forgetting, but this one is gonna be the most memorable one since that year's finals.
Because a chaotic Game 7 is like a Game 7 to me that is great. It's chaotic and all over the place and like has these moments of brilliance, but everyone is so tense that like they almost just like kind of suck at and exhausted, but they almost like suck at basketball for like 6 minutes, but then they figure it out for like 5.
Yeah.
And then it turns into like who can like put it together for little spurts, and that's what this game was. And I love the technical stuff. We love the X's and O's. We love the big picture philosophy here at the Just Basketball Show. Sometimes there's nothing better than, holy shit, who just handled the chaos better for the second half of a game. And by the way, the Minnesota Timberwolves just completed the biggest comeback that any team in NBA history has ever done in a Game 7. Holy shit. Let's dive into that game and so much more on today's Just Basketball Show. Welcome in to the Just Basketball Show. I am Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. If you haven't already, you can follow, rate, review on your podcast app platform of choice. Hit subscribe on the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel. We have great content going up there, breakouts of the show, all kinds of awesome stuff. And you can check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and X. We're posting content just for there as well. 3 times a week here on the Just Basketball Show. Myself, Brendan, and our guy, Wes Goldberg. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Let's talk more about Game 7. A Minnesota Timberwolves win, the first time in 20 years, Brendan, that the Wolves are in the conference finals, and they beat Nikola Jokic, the best player alive, the multiple-time MVP, the defending NBA champions, and did it, again, disastrous first half. No team that had been down more than 11 after the first half has ever come back, and the Wolves blew that out of the water.
38 points scored in the first half total. 38. I feel like the Pacers had that in the first 6 minutes.
They might have had it. They felt like they had it in the first 2 minutes, honestly. Which when we get to the Pacers Knicks games, I'm going to make a point about that struck me when I was watching this game. But this was also a game where it wasn't even like an Anthony Edwards dominates a Game 7 game. Anthony Edwards finished 6 of 24 in this game. And Brendan, if you had told me the Wolves were going to win and come back this way, and it wasn't going to be an Anthony Edwards dominates game, I think I would have told you I don't know how that's going to happen. And yet it did. And shout out to the Timberwolves who are here, who are real, who are as every bit a title contender who is real, who earned this. This was awesome. They delivered. This is one of this. If this isn't the biggest moment in their franchise history, it's one of the top 5, top 3.
Absolutely. I mean, this is only their second conference finals, I believe, right? So it's as big as anything. And look, I hear you on Anthony Edwards. Of course, he's been the star, but I almost feel like this did make sense to me. Now, going down 20, I wouldn't have projected in there. But just if you were to say they won and they won this way, I would have believed you because we've already seen in this postseason, Ant had a 15-point Game 2 in the first round. He had 19 in Game 3 this round. They lost that game. And 18 in Game 4 or Game 5. They did lose that game. But they've been able to be competitive and stay afloat without his best. And I almost think this Wolves win was kind of perfect in that way where they come back with their defense, right? Like it was pretty quick. You know, they were down 20 at one point in the third quarter, but it wasn't like a 12-0 run. It was pretty chipping away, mostly by getting stops. You get a little Karl Anthony Towns here. You get a little Jaden McDaniels in the first half there. Conley hits some timely buckets, especially from deep, if not a huge night from him. You get the Naz Reid explosion to close the game that we'll get to. I'm sure.
I've got to. If that guy's doing tattoos, I might need to fly back to Minnesota to get a $20 Naz Reid tattoo in my forearm after some of the stuff he did in this game.
The price just went up, I think. The price just went up. But then, right, like it's extra Wolvesy because their warts showed up here too. You had Karl Anthony Towns get his 5th foul with about 6 minutes to go, has to hit the bench. And you're like, damn, I mean, obviously Naz Reid is great. He's the 6th man of the year. He's had some nice moments in this series, but this is happening. It's imploding. It's Cat on the bench with foul trouble in the biggest moment of their season, of this era. Was that the last play he's ever going to be on the court for Minnesota? And then their depth, their intensity, and their kind of collective spirit is what ends up winning out. I thought it was cool that it happened that way, although, of course, yes. If you had told me Ant was going to be this bad from the field, I probably would have agreed that it would have gotten ugly. But, hey, it did get ugly, and then they actually just figured it out. So, yeah, I mean, them being deeper. I have to throw a little bit of a brag in here, though. I told you guys via text, and I said it in the last show.
You were right.
In this matchup, Minnesota, when they are playing their best, they are better than this version of Denver's best. And I think we saw that in the second half.
I 100% agree. And I think the point about energy, Brendan, and having a gas tank, I think that showed out here in a big way. I think that's one of the stories of this game to me. Number one, I want to just put some more. I'm taking this cue from you, big picture, but Rudy Gobert might be the most conditioned player in the NBA. That guy just never stopped going. I know he fouled out. I know kind of a quiet game from him, but that guy's always kind of there. The whole Wolves team, Anthony Edwards on down, is flying around this game the entire time. My favorite play of this game is a block on Jokic late in the fourth quarter. 3 Wolves, who are probably all to some degrees exhausted, find the energy to go meet Jokic at the rim. I think it was Naz, Jaden. I don't know who the third guy was, but they all meet Jokic at the rim, and they kickstart a fast break. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. 3 guys just went and met Jokic at the rim. For 3 guys to do that late in the game speaks to this Wolves team. By comparison, it felt like Denver, on their bench, Christian Brown's the only bench guy that played double-digit minutes. Reggie Jackson plays 5. Holiday plays 9. And it felt like the strategy they used in the first half, particularly defensively, where they blitzed Ant. Jokic is coming up well beyond the level and kind of like soft trapping Ant. They're throwing and they're rotating. They're almost like they're rotating all around. Everyone has to move everywhere to keep Ant in check and make him give up the ball and then make it hard for him to get back the ball and attack on the weak side. It felt like with the heavy minutes they asked their main guys to play on top of that strategy, it burned them out. And the Wolves didn't burn out in the same way. It is too simplistic to just base the game on that. But to me, that opened the door in the second half for what the Wolves did. Because of who the Wolves are, the way Denver had to burn themselves in the first half, and a strategy that really worked, it left them vulnerable, I think, in the second half of this game.
Yeah, I think that's a good read on it. I mean, you give credit to Minnesota not just for the comeback, and obviously that was historic, like you said, but I think they almost do deserve some credit for not letting this get out of hand in a series where we saw a 26-point game, a 27-point game, a 15-point loss, and then, of course, they had a 45-point win in there. Like, this has been such a lopsided series where that first punch has meant so much that I'm impressed that, like, they cut it to 10 midway through the second quarter on a couple of Cat made a three, and then he made a fadeaway jumper in the post over some kind of mismatch. Might have been Murray. They cut it to 10.
Mm-hmm.
He starts the second half missing three straight. Ant front rim to three, and then airball the mid-range jumper back to back. But then right away, Ant gets a transition layup, cuts the lead to 12. Then you did start to see the legs wear down. Murray had 4 straight misses at one point in the middle of the third quarter, which is when Minnesota started to make their comeback. They go on a 9-0 run, leads down to 6. You saw a Jokic turnover shortly thereafter, and then the wheels started to come off. So they kept it within striking distance with some timely buckets in that first half, even though it did look ugly. And then again, You're right, they were ready to kind of hit it. Jokic played more minutes tonight than he has in any regulation playoff game ever. And I know that's a game 7. I understand the difference, but still, 46. I doubt that was the plan. I doubt that's what they were hoping he would have to play, but they just don't trust their guys. They haven't all series, really.
No, and I think for as much as you could look at the way they built this roster this year and think about the way they intentionally built it with older rookies and stuff, there's a certain point where it's like clearly Michael Malone just didn't trust these guys. They weren't Hunter Tyson, and Zeke Najee's never been a thing. Peyton Watson never got off the floor in these playoffs. Straw weather never mattered this year at all. Like, these guys just never mattered, and that bit them in some way. Like, that those guys didn't work out, and then some of the fringe guys for like Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
And that Minnesota's a good enough opponent that that mattered, right? Because like last year, Jeff Green kind of sucked. Like, frankly, he was playing, but he wasn't awesome. But they didn't really run into anybody who made them have to pay for that. Whereas this opponent very quickly was like, yeah, shit, we're really in it.
And then on top of that, it feels like Gordon, Porter, and I think most notably KCP all a hedge worse. KCP a 0 in these playoffs on offense. KCP like battled on defense, doing what he needed to do on that end, but not spacing the floor at all. Not any the ball gets swung his way, you feel like he's gonna miss. Porter Jr., the quick triggers there, but 3 of 12 in this game, 1 of 6 from 3. Aaron Gordon, 2 of 5. And Aaron Gordon committing some dumb fouls in this game as well. Just like mindless fouls. I expect better out of Aaron Gordon. When those guys, who are the other heavy minutes guys, aren't giving you anything, the margin for error for Jokic, who just, some of the threes he's taking, just no lift on them.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually. Because, you look at it like Christian Brown, 24% from deep in the playoffs heading into tonight. He's 0 of 1. Justin Holiday, 38. Reggie Jackson, 35. They don't even get any up today. But we've talked plenty about Murray's poor performance at various points. He showed up for the team tonight. But I noticed the Jokic tiredness, and it's unfair to maybe say he's been tired the whole postseason, but he had 15 rebounds in the first half and 4 in the second half. And to me, that is another example of some of the defensive energy stuff you were talking about, where it's like they had that first punch. They didn't have the combo after that. And then the threes, 2 of 10. And if we're talking about all these ways that the Nuggets were a touch worse, he's been money from 3, not just last postseason, but forever in his career. He's always brought it, made more shots from back there for whatever reason in the playoffs versus the regular season. That just did not happen in this run. So 28% heading into tonight, 2 of 10. He's probably going to finish around 25%. Like, it's not good enough. Even though he's been heroic in so many other ways, like, you can't miss those shots against a defense that's giving them to you and expect to win.
No, not at all. 2 stats, Brendan, I want to hit you with from this game. Number 1, this is the first time in this series. The Wolves lost the points in the paint battle and won the game. That's interesting. Number 2, Nuggets, I believe it's now 0-12 on the year when they scored under 100 points. And I think it's 6 times. It's either 6 or 7. might have the number wrong. I don't have it exactly in front of me right now. But they've been held under 100 points. 6 of those times out of the 12 are by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Shout out Tim Conley, who did the damn thing in building a team to defeat the Denver Nuggets. You know what I mean? Unbelievable stuff.
For sure, and being able to play their game and still beat them, I think, is huge, right? Because many teams are so out of their comfort zone, just stylistically, pace-wise, half court versus full court, low 3-point totals because the Nuggets don't take a lot, they don't let you take a lot, all these other things. Rebounding, Minnesota's obviously more than capable of matching that as they did tonight, but we don't know what Minnesota's going to do. Obviously, yet. They're in the conference finals. We'll see where they go from there. But I think what's so cool about this is, and it comes back to your original point about how they were able to win in spite of Ant not playing his best. This is 2 teams now that have dominated a postseason and kind of announced themselves. Denver last year, now Minnesota by beating them this year, that are so antithetical to what we thought was supposed to be able to win in 2024 in the NBA, right? Like last year with the Nuggets, it's like they're a mediocre defense. They don't really have a cream of the crop perimeter creator on the wing, which is kind of like what we've all been thinking you had to have, from LeBron to KD to whatever, Kawhi. They didn't have that. Their center's not a great athlete. All these things, including the stylistic stuff I just mentioned, and yet they just bomb through the playoffs and win a title. The Wolves, it's like they are young, obviously, but they're really big in the front court, 2 bigs, building around a guard that's not like the elite of the elite shooter. It's not Steph. Steph's really the only small guard who's been able to dominate the NBA since Jordan. I mean, Kobe, I guess, but he's kind of a wing. To be able to roster-wise and experience-wise and style-wise do this, and frankly, just to be built around defense at all, Chris, that's something we thought was over. And this Wolves team is just so cool in so many ways because they're just something we thought was just done, and that's why I don't think anybody believed in them literally going into the second half tonight. It was all the way through there before anyone said they could do it.
All 3 hosts on our show picked the Phoenix Suns for one. We all picked
everybody
against,
did.
Yeah, and here's the teams with the best defenses in the league this year, Brendan. Top 10. Orlando, Sacramento, Oklahoma City, Boston, Minnesota. This isn't the playoffs. I'm gonna fix this. Cleaning the glass. I want to look at regular season. I understand why they did that, but L for me by not checking the filters.
It is the worst this time of year. Cleaning the glass sorts everything by postseason, even when you're 6 layers deep of a stat and you're like, why would I only be wanting to see 16 teams of this? Come on. Help me out here.
Okay. Regular season defense: Minnesota, Orlando, Boston, OKC, Miami, Cleveland, Houston, New Orleans, Denver, New York, Philly. 2 of those teams are left in the playoffs. It is an anomaly that defensive teams maybe it isn't an anomaly anymore that these 2 teams with elite defenses are now making playoff runs. Maybe we're in a world where defense is this different thing, and the offense is obviously a different thing. Minnesota's we kind of have a test case here where Minnesota's offense was their whole concern. They're league average. Boston obviously first in offense. They play totally different contrasting styles and intentions, and their stars play very different ways and have very different attitudes. But it's cool that, to your point, that we're getting these very different realities of how teams are approaching, and none of this looks the same. None of the teams left play the same, want to play the same. It's ideologically all over the place. The Final Four of the NBA this year is all over the place. The Wolves are unique in their own way, and they're kind of the best example of the state of the league, I think, in that way.
If we do get Minnesota and Boston, that'll be about as clash of styles as you possibly could get. No bigs, basically no real people who play like centers and two centers, sometimes three.
Yeah.
I mean, the Wolves played Reed, Towns, and Gobert together in this game in the second quarter, and they do that sometimes. So it should be a blast. But I think that's a great jumping off point to Dallas because they seem like the forgotten team here a little bit.
I just want to say the last thing I'll say about Nuggets Wolves. I know Knicks Sixers was like the 1 point series. I understand there were some blowouts in this Nuggets Wolves series that made some of the games not as competitive. That was my favorite series of the playoffs so far, and it's not close.
Oh yeah. No,
I just want to be on the
Knicks
record.
Sixers, it's like first round, everybody's hurt, and Embiid, the whole Sixers drama. No, this was the level of basketball was far and away better, and I think we could be in for another pretty fun one in Minnesota Dallas.
Yes, so let's get into Dallas. Dallas beats the Oklahoma City Thunder. Down 17 at the half, another big comeback here. Massive comeback in this game. And another game where, Brandon, the role players were the story in a lot of ways. Derrick Jones Jr., playing the best ball of his career, had a big game. Derek Lively was incredible.
So
incredible in this game. A guy, by the way, as a reminder, Oklahoma City facilitated a trade to get him to Dallas. Picked him. There's a picture of him in the OKC draft hat.
They also got Cason Wallace out of that, but yeah.
I know. I'm just
Gordon Hayward inadvertently.
Well, we'll
indirectly, I should say.
I'll come to him later. PJ Washington was huge in this game, and the Thunder. I mean, the Mavericks, Brennan. Excuse me. Against something I didn't really expect, did not miss Maxi Kleber nearly as much as I would have expected. Their role guys were awesome. Kyrie and Luka did their thing and everything. Their defense was great in the second half. Really just made everyone but Shea beat them, I thought. But their role guys took over the day, and Luka trusted them. And you can tell, I think, how in sync that group is and how I don't think Luka's ever trusted a team more than he trusts this team, is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, to go back to the Kleber part, not that, no point in talking about what he couldn't or couldn't have done in this series, but the fact that they didn't miss him, I think, speaks to what worked for them, which is going big, which we didn't know if they were going to be able to effectively do. We thought they would have to have that trump card of a center who can space, which Kleber has been for them for, forever. Mm-hmm. They didn't ever really pivot to that. They never even played the PJ Washington at center card just to try it. They just trusted what they did and their defensive size and length, both on the ball, giving OKC's ball handlers fits, but especially to just cramp the driving lanes that they got so used to playing in. All regular season long, their drive and kick offense worked wonders. It was part of what surprised us about them is that they were able to just put the ball in different guys' hands, obviously Shea number one, and get great stuff out of just relentlessly getting downhill. Dallas just really took that away, and they did it by continuing to have a center out there, manipulating where that center was going to be, throwing different on-ball matchups at the Thunder's different guys, and at the end of the day, just not believing that OKC shooters would make them pay. And, it sucks, to have that kind of shooting luck just go the wrong way. It was a little better in Game 6, frankly, especially in spurts. They kind of got hot, but that's enough when Shea is still playing as well as he is, but the shots aren't going in and some of the little stuff goes the other direction. I think that's all what adds up to losing, but credit to the Mavs for just holding with what they thought would win and getting it to go their way with their own adjustments because that was not what we thought was going to happen. I mean, you mentioned Derrick Jones Jr. We didn't even think that guy was going to play for them. There's all sorts of things that just kind of culminated in this performance.
I wasn't sure that guy was like a really an actual NBA player more than just a weird gimmick guy a year ago, and here he is a really important playoff guy. You know what I mean? And there's a lineup. This has now changed. NBA Reddit pointed this out. This has already been slightly made moot by a Wolves lineup that I'll tell you what it is. But the Mavs have a lineup that has the best defensive rating of any lineup in the playoffs and the second best net rating. The lineup is Kyrie, Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Luka, and Derek Lively II. The Wolves lineup that has a better net rating, a little worse defensively, but still like outstanding defensively is Conley, Gobert, Towns, Edwards, McDaniels, not surprisingly.
The starting lineup, yeah.
The starting lineup. But this Mavs team is just like, they have these lineups that are just big. They know exactly what they are. They have the scoring. They have just enough spacing with the way these guys are shooting right now, the confidence they're playing with right now. And I wonder, if you ask them, maybe Kyrie a little bit less, because I think that guy he's in his own zone in so many ways, obviously. But a Derek Jones, a PJ Washington, I wonder what kind of boost they get from just feeling empowered in these moments when Luka gets the trap or he gets doubled or he needs to give the ball when he sees his guy open in the corner and it's not even a hesitation for him. I wonder how that empowers them in those moments and maybe does that goose them in some way, or what is going on there that is kind of helping them in these moments and how they feel so free, they feel so comfortable. It feels just so loose in a way that and understandably for OKC by comparison, they felt a little bit tight. Chet felt a little bit tight. J-Dub felt a little bit tight. We can get it. I have some Gideon Hayward stats for the series that are indicative about that.
With Dallas, Wes and I hit on this in the last episode, but
yep,
it's night and day stylistically from how they were playing even as recently as last year, even when they got Kyrie. Like this has just opened up and felt a lot more like what the best version of Luka is versus last offseason. We went into it kind of being like, what is up with this dude? Why is he? It's like he's heliocentric, doesn't even describe how everything he was for them last season. They weren't good. They actively were like tanking at the end of last year, and it was a whole thing. And heliocentric has like almost like a not like even like a positive connotation, but no,
like
it has a negative connotation.
Okay,
I think.
Okay, but it almost needs like the way Luka was playing last year needed like more of a negative connotation.
Mm-hmm. I think it's ball hog.
Selfish.
Is what we would say. Yeah, selfish.
Yeah,
Those are the words.
Yeah.
And just slow too. Not even just that he was taking shots, but it was like he's just like constantly backing guys down and just going one-on-one. And it's like we all just know this isn't going to work. And so not only does he cede the ground, I think like it's Luka's team, of course. But like to him, I feel like there were days this season where he was like, it's kind of Kyrie's team. I didn't think that would happen.
There is a thing with Kyrie that this isn't new. This isn't like a new thought. I've said it on the show before, I'm very sure. Kyrie is one of those guys that like the players in the league adore more than anybody else. There's a reason LeBron has like flirted with wanting to play with him again, and I think misses playing with him to some degree.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just saying to go from the way he was playing last year, where it was like everything's through me. I don't trust my teammates, it seems. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. Like, we're going to live or die by what I do because I'm the only one good enough to do anything about that. That's a far cry from where he is now and the relationship with Kyrie and the willingness to play fast. And I thought for 2 series now, Luka's played pretty decent defense, especially when he's needed to.
Yes.
So it's just all these things that have kind of added up.
Can I give you 2 names that I suspect have a role in that?
Yeah.
Jason Kidd.
Sure.
Who's Jason fucking Kidd, and I think has a gravitas as a head coach. And Nico Harrison, who has had a long-time relationship with Kyrie's and former Nike guy. Knows I think like that. I think the structure of that organization kind of lends itself to maybe some of that stuff getting worked out. That would be my guess. Without knowing, that would be my guess. That some of the organizational people that can talk there, I think kind of can maybe.
Well, and I just think it's 82 games of it working. I mean, they had a really good regular season, and they were able to just, ride it out. And I think guys like Derek Jones and Dante Exum, and then obviously PJ Washington coming in and Gafford coming in and Lively developing, like that's 4 guys I just listed off who were not on the team or were not all of them were not on the team last year. Every single guy that I just said. So, Josh Green was there, Kyrie was there, Hardy was there, of the players who played in this game 6.
I liked Hardy's minutes, by the way. I liked what Hardy gave them. Thought he gave them like just a little something in his minutes. Not like super impactful, but like just a little something.
Drew a charge, I believe.
Yeah.
I had a note in the Knicks side about agents as executives because they have the same thing, and then you have the Warriors and the Lakers. I kind of feels like more teams should think about that because it seems to be working when teams have tried it, but it's kind of an off-season note. But Oklahoma City-wise, first of all, I think we should just go back before we go to the Thunder in too much depth. The end of this game was insane.
Dude.
We should just... I mean, how differently we would have been previewing a game 7 if like one other thing went differently because
it feels like we are like it maybe feels like less insane just because of what we just saw because Nuggets Wolves we're recording like right after Nuggets Wolves and that just happened and it's fresher and this maybe feels less insane because it happened like a day ago.
So it's tied with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left, or really 3 minutes left, basically. Shea hit a jumper to tie it. Then P.J. Washington hit a corner 3. Then back and forth. Up 5. The Mavs were up 5 with about a minute to go. Then Shea charges down the court and takes that pull-up 3 like in stride at the top of the key, which was crazy.
Yep. P.J.
Washington misses a 3, and then that's when Shea fouled P.J. Washington on the next one. And that's the deciding thing. But
it's Shea hits the 3. Mm-hmm. Shea gets fouled away from the ball, gets 1 free throw.
I have it up too. I was just not going to go play by play.
Yeah,
I thought I know I'm a little out of sorts.
Yeah,
but
it was just notable that the Thunder had a lead with 2.1, like they're defending a lead with 2, was just my point. Yeah.
Yep, they're up at that point, and Shea fouls P.J. Washington on that corner 3, and he didn't even really argue it post game.
No,
and P.J. hits 2 of 3, and that's kind of it. The alley-oop to Chet was an awesome play, so I definitely should have shouted that one out. But it's gonna be like it because of how it broke down, and the reason I went back to it, Chris, is like it's gonna get remembered or talked about on Monday and everything else as like, oh, late game stuff. The Thunder are the less disciplined team because they're young. Because that's just like it's just low hanging fruit. It's right there. It's such an easy thing if you host like some ESPN radio show to just jump to that because it's probably like you've only watched the Thunder 6 times and it was these 6 games, but they played very well in this series. Yes. And I even Wes and I were pretty hard on Jalen Williams. We discussed him and why he struggled. He played pretty awesome. Chet showed up. Shea did everything you would want from that guy in that moment. And their 3-point shooters came alive, like I mentioned. Like, this felt like a 1-point game, and sometimes you're just on the wrong side of those. I don't think it has to be much more negative than that, honestly.
No, I think there's some big picture things I think are worth getting into at some point. I do have a list for us that we can get to in a second. I think it's worth noting for the series, they just it hurt them that no one aside from Shea averaged more than 20. Like, that's just tough. It's hard to win a series when that happens. As good as Shea was, he averaged 33, and no one averaged more than 20. Chet going cold from 3 just happened. And, like, I thought their process with Chet and with Dort, who also was cold from 3, they were fine. Like, it was still... Like, none of what they did with those guys was, I thought, bad. It was just didn't work.
I think Tim McMahon brought it up on Zach Lowe's podcast, I think, of how many of Chet's threes were short, and I think that is one where he hit the rookie wall, but, it was like 2 years late, and he waited till the playoffs, but in terms of the shooting, which was such a surprise part of what he was able to do right away this season, it did kind of disappear on him at the wrong time, I think, just because it's like, that takes a lot to move and be as active as he is and play 5 out the way they do and just keep bombing threes and making 40% of them. Like, that's harder than we think it is,
Played a whole season after missing a year because of, like, a Jones fracture, and then literally didn't miss a game this year. Like, that's going to be fatiguing.
It's a lot.
Two guys that I would just look at with OKC that I think I wonder how they'll look at this in the offseason, maybe even look at how aggressive they'll need to be in season with trades again. Josh Giddey and Gordon Hayward just gave them nothing as a point of comparison to the role guys on Dallas. Combined 39 points in 90 minutes for those two. Obviously, Giddey ends up playing much more than Hayward, but Hayward, a nothing trade for them. And Brendan, this brings me to my list. Are you ready?
Well, I have a couple things on the Thunder first because I think your list gets us a little bit, transitions us out, right?
Well, it crescendos back on the Thunder is sort of my point.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. This is 5 players, and I'm putting a little asterisk on 5 because 2 guys are linked together, and I can't really extrapolate them, and you'll understand why when I say it. Who, because of this postseason, are going to be on different teams. That's my list. Okay. Number 5. This is the layup one. Tobias Harris. Just easy.
Yeah, you're giving him some credit that it took until the postseason for that to be decided, but I can appreciate it.
Game 7 just really stunk, Really stunk.
We'll always have the Game 6, though. Game 6 is what his agents / his dad are going to be sending the
Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons have already decided to give him money, Brendan. I think we heard that has been foretold.
Coming home.
Yeah. God bless the Detroit Pistons. That's really hard. Number 4, Paul George.
Is that because of the playoffs, or is that because
they lost the first round? And did the playoff success justify the money he wants? That's my question.
Yeah, he was not great, and there's been too many times where they've needed him to be a number 1 option, and since 2021 at least, he hasn't really been able to do that.
Brendan, I'm going to tell you, I wanted mostly to get a reaction out of you to put Durant on this list. And then I listened to your really excellent show covering the Budenholzer press conference, and it feels like there's 0 chance Kevin Durant's leaving the Phoenix Suns this summer. So I didn't do that.
I think the GM said there's no situation in which they would trade them. So good call not putting him on there.
Yeah, okay. Number 3, Brook Lopez. Bucks lost. Someone's got to get moved. They're old. That's a salary. The weird thing about these playoffs too, Brendan, I found in making this list is that I think a lot of teams are going to be able to talk themselves into run it back.
That's the thing about the parity era we're in, though, too, right? It's like just in the same way that any team can convince themselves, why not us? There's also all the teams that lose that are like, did we really do anything wrong, or was it just not our year? And I mean, Milwaukee, I think we all agree, is in a little more bleak of a situation than that. And so I like Brook being here.
Little on the nose.
At the same time, I don't blame this on Brook, but
no, but it's like that.
What else are you going to
trade? Yeah, very on the nose for Damian Lillard to be in a Furiosa like Mad Max ad, and just throwing that out there, like a little. You're in the wasteland, like bleak ad, Dame, like tough.
Yeah,
tough.
Doc
right,
is like
2.
the guy that's in charge of the water, or whatever he's called.
Yeah. Very excited for you. So number 2. These are the 2 linked together. Darius Garland and Jared Allen. You will definitely be on different teams next season if it feels like.
Yeah. And how do you think, does Jared Allen have Tyrod Taylor on speed dial? How did this rumor come to be?
So that's the nut. Like, Jared Allen.
Are they buddies? Did we not know that Jared Allen and Tyrod Taylor are boys?
Here's the thing.
I mean, I knew the Tyrod Taylor story, but like if my season was on the line, I don't know if that would come to my brain so rapidly. That was a very deep pull.
I'm gonna be honest. Knowing what I know about Jared Allen and like the interactions you have with him, and knowing like what a nerd he is, and I don't think he's like a big NFL guy. I was like, why do you know this Tyrod Taylor thing? This is weird. And then I'm like, so sure. And then like you get this his value. I think teams are gonna want him. Do you have a favorite Jared Allen fit? I kind of like Memphis.
Backing up Jaren, I think they're going Jaren at center. I think getting rid of Steven Adams was like Jaren is our center now, so he would be a backup there. And I don't hate having an option if you do want to go big, and maybe that experiment doesn't work.
$20 million for a backup's kind of. New Orleans would make some sense.
New Orleans is the one that I like the best. Or Golden State.
I like. Yeah, I like I like New Orleans for him, and Darius is the funny thing. Darius immediately just getting the clutch is going to have a conversation if Donovan resigns. It's just like, okay,
get Darius to San Antonio, get Jared Allen to New Orleans. There we go.
Here we go. All right, number 1, Josh Giddey. You're going to be on a different team. This is done. There's nothing he can provide the Thunder. If they are a series, I understand his trade value is low, like Ben Simmons low. It feels like I don't know what this guy provides you.
Yeah, he's not expensive. That's the problem, right? No. Or that's the good part for him. He's not on an expensive contract.
This guy is not contributing to playoff basketball for a team that needs to just be thinking about how far it can go in the playoffs. Now it is time to just get rid of Josh Giddey from the Oklahoma Thunder. It's done.
Yeah, extension eligible to this summer, and that's bad timing. to say the least. But look, I do think he's somebody. I don't think he should be on this team, given that they are ready to win a championship and they have other guys who do similar things. They don't really need what he does. But if he could go to a bad team for a little while and develop his offensive game, the Spurs have Sohan, and I think Sohan's a little too similar. But somebody put him on the Wizards and just mess around. Like put him on, whatever the team that implodes this year and has just like minutes to go around. Put him on Charlotte. Put him on if Atlanta gets rid of DeJounte and Trey, like something like that, where it's like he can just have reps on the ball and he can just play in space and play with young guys and not have to be looking over his shoulder all the time, which he didn't really have to do up until the postseason, to Mark Daignault's credit. But at the same time, it's like, I do think there's something in there. If he can be a power driving guy and he can learn to score around the basket a little better, I think he has a shot, but probably not going to ever live up to the draft slot, I don't think.
No, and it's also, to me, it's a red flag that they have Chip Engelland, who's like this world-renowned shooting coach. Mm-hmm. And who's like, they're talking about him on the broadcast as like we fix shots, and Josh Giddey's shot is just like not fixable, I guess.
Or maybe skipped his early morning sessions with Chip. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think he's gone. The problem is just like, to get back to the Thunder for a minute, I had said, like they did kind of show their hand with that. They also showed their hand with, in this Game 6, their season on the brink, they did play big more than they had. They put Jay Will and Chet out there together. Jay Will played 18 minutes. I don't know what the exact number was of both of them on the court, but they obviously feel like, if for nothing else than making sure Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford don't have 8 combined offensive rebounds, they just need size. They need box out. It would have helped to have a little more rim protection, I'm sure, all that stuff. But the problem is the same thing that the problem has been since February, when everybody wanted them to go make a trade, is the way they play and the way their roster is built. That's very much easier said than done. There's probably you could count them on one hand, the number of high-caliber players they could actually get who would fit how they play and actually plug that hole for them. That's why Markkanen was such an exciting option, but it's like, can you even come up with one more name that you'd really be thrilled about besides Markkanen? And I don't know if the Jazz are getting rid of him, so I don't know. I don't know what they do, even if we agree, Giddey got benched, he's probably not coming back, but okay, then what? It's not an easy answer to that question, even if we can all go, they need to get bigger. It's like, great. How? A lot of teams need a lot of things. What are you going to do about it,
Yep, I agree. All right, a little quick Western Conference preview, Brendan. We'll do this very quickly. I think I just give you one big question. To me, it's about what can Luka give you. I think that is my big question. Clearly, I don't think he's at 100% right now. His numbers dropped off regular season to first round to second round. 33.9 round in the regular season with 48.3, 38.2, 78.6 splits, 8.7 free throws per game. His first round against the Clippers, 29.8 points per game with splits of 40.5, 23.9, and 83%, taking 7.8 free throws per game. This past round, 24.7 points per game with splits of 44.7, 39.1, and 73.7, taking 6.3 free throws per game.
Yeah.
The question is, how much of this is him picking his spots a little more because of his health, and how much of this is him reading the defense and trusting his role guys and feeding those guys? And how does that look now against Minnesota and that elite defense? That, to me, is my big question of that series.
Yeah, I think it's for sure the first thing. I think the lack of production, some of it's just if you're doing per game, the game slows down. So playoff per game stuff's always a little slower. Yeah. But the efficiency doesn't lie, and free throws per game, I would even say that doesn't really lie, because if anything, we've seen guys rely on that more in the postseason at times and everything. So I think it's mostly the health. He also trusted the role guys plenty during the regular season, so he's hobbled. I think there's no doubt about that, no way around that. But the number within what you just read that jumps out to me more than anything else is in this most recent round against a better defense. I think we would all agree in Oklahoma City. The pull-up three was going in again.
was back.
And that's
yeah.
always the weather vane for him. And there's really nothing, I think, like, he looked physically worse in this series, and yet that shot went in. I don't really think that there's a lot of rhyme or reason to it, but it did go in most of the regular season, as you mentioned, 38.2% overall. A lot of his threes are step backs. Obviously, he's not, standing in the corner taking catch and shoot threes. If he can even out and stabilize with that, it's going to go a long way because, Jaden McDaniels is going to be a handful. Obviously, pull up threes. Like, if you want to have a point of attack defender who can eliminate that shot, it's like Jaden McDaniels and Drew Holiday, and there's not really anyone else that can do it like they do it. So that shot might not be there all the time, but he's going to be able to create space for it. He's going to be able to get Rudy or Towns or Naz Reid or whoever he wants, Mike Conley even, switched out onto him and bomb that over the top of those guys. If he can get that shot to continue to go, I think that'll really open a lot up because he's not going to want to drive and dance around in the middle of the floor like he often does against this defense. They're going to smack the ball away. They're going to play his passing lanes. They're not going to let him get off easy shots. So that's going to be what it takes. And then I would say playing fast would be the other thing for them. Like Minnesota's transition defense was for some reason leaky in the regular season. I'm not really sure why. It's mostly been very good in the playoffs, outside of, I would say, Game 4 against the Suns, and then a couple moments throughout those middle 3 games of this past series when they lost to Denver. There were some moments where they started to give up those easy buckets that were fast break-ish.
Just chuckling, still thinking about how the Wolves did what they did. Just like basking.
That just happened. Yeah. But that's
Wow.
one other area where I think they could steal a few. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to, even better than Oklahoma City, if you're trying to put together a defense that has the personnel to stop Luka and Kyrie and the size to protect the rim and take away the lobs, it's like, well, here they are. So I might be leaning Minnesota as much as Luka just, and this Dallas team has really overachieved and impressed us.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Minnesota as well.
They just won a series, right, where they did not have the best player in it and still won it. So usually you would go, well, Luka's going to be the best guy, so that I give them the edge. But in this case, I don't really know if you could do that anymore.
And the second chance points stuff that Dallas had in this last series is just not going to be there in the same way against Minnesota. It's just not. That's not that kind of benefit. No. I think they had a 26-8 advantage in Game 6. That's literally 27-8, excuse me. That's not happening at all in this series against Minnesota. So,
and what happens if they can't steal the games where, because PJ Washington was flaming hot for the first half of the series, and then it kind of cooled off. If he doesn't have those, that goes away too.
Yeah. The X factor would be does Kyrie there's a way. I think this is a really great series for Kyrie, but does he have 4 monster games in him? If Luka's not 100%, is a question.
Yeah, I guess do they put Conley on Kyrie and have the size be a little more even, or do they have Conley on Derek Jones and just cross their fingers? That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of Naw is gonna, when every minute Naw is a game, just chasing around Kyrie is gonna be my guess.
Yeah,
maybe
and Ant can take that, but again, then you're what happens when Derek Jones back cuts Conley and jumps over him, a la LeBron over John Lucas. That wouldn't. We could see it. I'm just saying. Is
that the Tobias Harris of what if that's the comp? Is that the Tobias Harris of that LeBron?
I think in that case, John Lucas is kind of the Derek Jones, or Derek Jones is kind of the John Lucas in terms of relevance.
Do you mean Damon Jones? I think you mean Damon Jones.
You've said it a lot of times, and I still don't. I mean John Lucas. He jumped over when John Lucas was on the Bulls. LeBron jumped over him.
Why do I not remember? I should know this. I gotta look.
When LeBron was on the Heat.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
I think it was an alley-oop.
I'm thinking of LeBron when he... Yeah, okay. There's a lot of good LeBron stuff.
There's multiple times LeBron has jumped over other human beings to dunk the ball. So I guess both...
Yeah.
I guess I did also mean that in theory, but Conley was more of a like-sized player to John Lucas.
Me blacking out the Miami years is very on brand for someone from Cleveland, Ohio, is what I would say. All right. So let's go. We'll get into Knicks-Pacers now, but first got to tell you about our friends from Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses. They use its vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use our link below, make your purchase, and support the Just Basketball Show. I've got a great Guardians jacket from Homage that they did with Starter. Might be needing to get a Wolf shirt from Homage is what I'm thinking after that game. This is what I might need to do. All right, Pacers, Brendan, they did it. Holy shit. They went into New York. This could have been the holy shit moment of the day. The way Indiana was so composed, didn't play like it was a game 7 from the get-go. 76.3% shooting in the first half, the best team-wide shooting half in the last 25 seasons, according to ESPN. 39 points in the first quarter is the most points ever scored by a team in the first quarter in a Game 7. Came out composed, came out ready, just beat the Knicks to the punch, had way more in the tank than the Knicks every step of the way, and the Indiana Pacers have made the Eastern Conference Finals. Congratulations to the goddamn Indiana Pacers. They did it.
Sometimes you just have to beat who's in front of you, right? I mean, it's easy to pick this one apart. The East sucks. I don't think we're going to look back, and I don't even think the Pacers front office, depending on how they play against Boston, I don't want to speak too soon, but like you can't sit here and be like, and next year we'll make the finals. You know, like you just, it is what it is. But at the same time, this Game 7, I think, was everything you needed. This was the first time in this series that a road team had won a game. We talked about how Game 7s usually look when we were hitting on Minnesota-Denver. Only the Knicks side of this looked like that. The Pacers looked like they were playing Game 1 of the regular season. They were ready to go. And
they looked
shout
like
out
they
to
were in
them.
the NBA Cup, baby. They were in NBA Cup zone.
They were back in Vegas. So I think to me the Pacers side of this, like his Tyrese Haliburton's growth and adjustment over even the course of this series to me is really the story, and it's why they were able. They weren't going to just win this with Pascal doing ISO stuff and getting 18 a game. Like they were going to need Haliburton's dynamic creation and everything else, and it was the ability to find ways to continue to get off his pull-up three, I think, was huge, Chris. I think going to the floater, the layup package, the mid-range when he needed to, although if you look at Cleaning the Glass and other sites like that, his frequency in those areas was even down from the regular season. So it's not like he's, turning into Michael Jordan out there, posting up and spinning around and stuff. But he did it when it was needed. And finding ways, I think, to play in space and play fast, even against a pretty aggressive and athletic Knicks team. Yeah. It got less so by the game, it felt like, but still finding ways to play his way against an opponent that was like determined not to let him do that. I think there really is something to be said for it, and every young player has to do it. You are who you are. If your style is not going to work in the playoffs, you either got to adapt or force it to work. And I think he did a little bit of both, and that's the thing you have to feel the best about, even if the opponents you can kind of pick holes in.
That's the first time I've ever watched Haliburton and felt like he was playing with like a real FU kind of edge. I think. Like, this series, the end of it, I think especially, is the first time I've looked at him and been like, he's jawing at the crowd, he's jawing at the other team. This series did get a little bit chippy here and there, back and forth.
Is James Johnson going to get a suspension, by the way? He left the bench.
Yeah, I thought of you, in that moment.
Yeah, give us our title back or suspend James Johnson. Those are your options, Adam Silver.
Balls in your motherfucking court, Adam. Haliburton just going at it, and I think also was quiet early, and then just goes and goes and goes, and is forcing his will, like you said. And I think understanding that he had the room to do it too, because I think he understood what was in front of him. We have to note that this Knicks team was it was the Monty Python thing, where like it's like just a flesh wound, basically, is where this team ended up.
Yeah, I have I have a bone to pick with the Knicks situation, but you got to give the Pacers their flowers. But yes, I agree. He was attacking a weakened version of his opponent, for sure.
But it's like him understanding that that is there and he can just get whatever he wants, and Siakam the same thing, understood exactly what he knew he could get what he wanted. Yeah. That's good. I want that out of my stars. Like, understanding you just got to go take what's in front of you. That's the whole thing sometimes. Like, yeah, that's good.
They combined to go 10 of 12 for 25 points in the first quarter, and it was kind of over after that. I mean, the Knicks cut it to 11 in the third quarter. They cut it to 13 in the fourth quarter, but I don't really feel like, as guys are leaving the game, OG Anunoby plays 5 minutes, Jalen Brunson breaks his hand. It's like, and Tibbs still won't play, like freaking Shake Milton or whatever. Like, I think we all felt like it was over after that first quarter, and those guys just really showed up. So even T.J. McConnell, 6-3 in his first 8 minutes on the court. Like, everything was just clicking, but it starts with those two. But really, to me, like, we know what an offense with Siakam as its best player is going to look like, and that was the Raptors the past 3 years, and they were like the 20th offense in the NBA, right? Like, they're balanced for a reason. But yeah, on the Knicks side,
Haliburton also wearing just a Reggie Jackson sweatshirt with the choking after the game is just like, my guy. I love it. Like, he's a
WWE fan. He knows, you know what I mean? Like, he's trained in this.
But this is the first time he's wanted like the heel heat, to use the terms. You know what I mean? Like, he's not like a guy who I think like wants like the.
Well, it's his
heat.
First postseason. I mean, like.
But like he's like.
There's only so much shit you can talk to, like the MASH unit, elderly, like retirement home Bucks that you beat in round 1.
Sure, but it's just like him like wearing that hoodie, being aggressive, actually like after some up and down moments, even in the series, just in the game 7, showing up and looking like. Just it makes me more bullish on Haliburton after being a little wavering here and there a little bit.
Yeah, basketball fan / like very accomplished, smart writer Jay Caspian Kang has been on this thing all postseason on Twitter, Chris. I don't know if you follow him, where he's just been on full bandwagon of Tyrese Haliburton is not cool at all. So Hallie got a little one in his column today, I think, and we'll see what he does against Boston, but.
Yeah.
No, on the Knicks side, like, am I crazy to say that you kind of, if you are running the Knicks, and maybe you just knew what it was with Tom Thibodeau, but if you're running that organization, like, this kind of has to make you second guess some things, right? Like,
okay, so
have a long meeting with him after this, because like he had players. That's the thing.
Brendon,
they entered this run with Julius Randle as the only guy hurt. OG had come back. They have 4 centers. They have Alec Burks, who couldn't buy a minute. They have, Bojan Bogdanovic, who was playing some, but not a lot. Miles McBride, like, he became the standout breakout guy he was not playing much in the first few games. Like, you cannot you cannot do this and expect to win. You're not going to get much deeper than this. You might have better star talent in the future if they make a trade this summer and kind of cash in some things, but like, I don't even care if they have Kevin Durant on their team next year, if they're going to be playing everybody 45 minutes and losing guys every couple games. Like, that, it's just not sustainable, and I actually do think it's a problem, even if it's Thibs, ha 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 ha. It's like, no, but like, they blew it. They could have won this series if they had more guys.
So I love that you went here, because I texted you, we were prepping for the show today, and I told you I had a Knicks thing. I had that was kind of a buzzkill. This is my buzzkill thing. This is the exact point I wanted to make. Yeah. And I'll even take it a step further. I don't think the Knicks can like meet their full potential if Tibbs is going to coach this way or be their, and like, this is just who he is. So maybe they can't reach the full potential if Tibbs is their coach. Like, that's a concern I would have. Like, Josh Hart, bless his soul, is saying he's, like, they prep for this. You can't prep for this. Like, you ran out of juice. Like,
the OG thing is like, what are we doing
not have
here?
played.
I mean, I think he played because he wanted to play, if we're being honest. Like that's normally how this stuff works. But to run him into the ground so much in the first place when he's historically been an injury-prone guy, like, that's where you just have to be careful. Josh Hart's one thing. He seems to be Iron Man. But these other guys, like Mitchell Robinson, what are we doing? Mitchell Robinson's gotten hurt every 6 months for his whole life. Like, this was predictable.
This is predictable, and it's like, on top of what we know about Tibbs and his practices and the way he runs his ship, it's not even just like game stuff. It's like the whole thing. It's like, that is not sustainable for an 82-game season with all the travel. It's just not. You end up here unless you play 12 guys in the regular season and then play 9 in the playoffs. But Tibbs doesn't want to do it. He wants to play 7 guys, and he wants to run them into the ground and do this stuff. We know this is what he does.
Even Precious was barely playing. And as I'm looking at the box score now, like in the beginning, like their whole bench is guys who weren't playing before. And that's just because of how many they've lost. But I completely agree. And again, like, they had 10 guys, and it's kind of perfect to me that they played Indiana, who, despite whatever, they have obvious holes as a team. Obi Toppin's getting 15 minutes a night. Isaiah Jackson's getting 10. Ben Shepherd's playing 25. Like, these aren't even great players.
Who the Knicks just like dumped. The Knicks were just
I don't
like,
mind that so much.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's just like you had a body, and it's like
because look, he wouldn't have played anyway.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Even if they kept Obi Toppin, he would have been buried on the bench.
Yeah, and it's like, look, like you might not have Hartenstein next year. Like you might not. You're in a really like. This Knicks season seems to have brought so much joy back to that arena, to that fan base. I don't want to discount that. Like that's
really another
cool.
thing though that I'm not like.
Or
it's not even that big of. I'm like it's legitimately confusing, and I think I just know the answer, which is that they played so many close games, and Brunson rose to another level, and
yeah, it's Brunson.
DiVincenzo's lovable and everything, but like they made the second round in Game 6 last year. They made it one game further, and we're acting like the Knicks just came on to like. Where did this come from? The Knicks are back. It's like they almost beat the Heat. They pushed the Heat last year. They had some injuries go the other way and fell short, but I don't know. That's been weird to me. Like, were we just not paying attention last year? Did we not believe it? Now we believe it, so we're just gonna like do this belated celebration of the Knicks breakout and Brunson being an MVP candidate and everything. It's just
I think it's
kind of the same thing as last year.
I think it's like the Brunson full ascension to like MVP All-NBA guy and just like what that has meant on top of like the Villanova Knicks thing. I think that has just kind of been like a zeitgeist and all like the guys back in the arena. Like I think that's been like a whole thing. I think there's just like a little bit of added.
That part for sure.
I mean,
but I hear media talking about it and they're like a breakout season and all like those types of things. And it's just, it's like, that's just not true. I don't know what to tell you. That's not really accurate, but look, also people don't like Julius Randle. I think,
that's true. There's also a really good photo from this year of Jalen Brunson, like on the ground, like getting up after getting fouled or something, and Action Bronson's behind him looking absolutely zooted in like the vintage Patrick Ewing jersey. And it's just like, this is what I want. Like, I just need
Stoudemire was there today. I was thinking that.
Yeah, just I wonder what's up with Stat these days. I don't really want to get his opinion on some certain things, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, I'll just sidestep that completely. But there is also he was also in some criminal stuff. He got his number inducted into the Suns Hall of Fame, and also Stephon Marbury was there. So two Suns Knicks crossover legends that were. Part of this whole thing that
Did you also see Ben Stiller in this game? Like look at the ref and give like a timeout to the ref when the Knicks had a little run. Like Ben Stiller having like a moment because he's just beefing with like players and stuff,
and like extremely online telling.
Yeah.
Fred Katz things in his replies, telling SZA that he has a new season of whatever that TV show he does, Severance, coming on the way. When the singer SZA asked for a new season of that show, like Ben Stiller's just on Twitter a lot. Boston, you seem to be very worried heading into this Eastern Conference Finals that you're buying into this Celtics haven't been tested thing. You literally texted this earlier.
It's more of a finals thing. It's not an Eastern Conference. It's a finals thing.
Okay.
It's not a.
Well, then can Indiana test them in this series?
No,
because that could be a test on the way to the finals.
I think you're gonna. I think this is maybe like a 6-game series that looks like a slightly more competitive version of what we've just seen. Where like there's some close games. Boston plays its game. There's no Porzingis, which. At the start of the series, it's been reported at the very least if he plays at all, which will matter some with the way they play. It just does. But Boston should be more talented. Their wing score should be better. Their defense should be better. They can throw all the stuff at Haliburton that's going to make Haliburton's life hard, and they should be more rested and not beat the shit like the Knicks to not give to be able to throw more energy at Haliburton. They can guard Siakam pretty well. Like I just think they match up really well with Indiana. And I think
they can guard Siakam well as a team. I think they're just going to execute and kind of take away the drives and, sit on the passes, and they're not going to fall into the traps of, this shooter's one pass away from Siakam. I think they're going to be fine helping and recovering and just kind of figuring that out. But I think it'll be an interesting series for Tatum because I would imagine he gets that matchup and, having to deal with that, a guy that has a little bit of a size advantage physically. I think they're the same height, and being pretty consistently good on offense, which we know he has to be. I'm looking at that, but I agree they'll probably be able to make life even harder on Siakam or on Haliburton, and I think I just trust their kind of X's or P's and Q's, I should say, getting back in transition, not letting him get to his step back quite as often or as easily. I'm with you on the Haliburton might have a step back type of thing. I think Miles Turner is kind of the guy you circle on the Indiana side here. If he was really good down the stretch of this series, I think, and if he can get downhill on the roll, if he can get some transition buckets, if he can attack closeouts, and then obviously everything he has to do on defense, I could see him having a pretty big series. And if he does, that's how I think you could see it getting to like 6 or 7. But I'm on the same page. I don't think it'll be some sort of like the Celtics go down 2-1 and we're having a panic, but I think it'll be the hardest test they faced, especially since Donovan got hurt.
Yeah, if they go down 2-1, it's just because they like have the weird Celtics thing where they just kind of shoot themselves out of it or just don't play their game, which is what happened.
Well, they're losing game 2, so that's a given. So then it's like, if they lose game 3, okay, here we are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, can I ask you this? The way Donovan got to Boston, like downhill, really physical, kind of explosive, is Haliburton capable of that kind of outburst against Boston? Yeah, I agree. That to me is the struggle for him in this series.
Yeah, and I think it's the struggle for him against every team, and I think that's just going to be part of the growing pains. Like I could see him being pretty bad in this series potentially, but it's still being, he's only 23, like, and this is his first postseason. I get it's like the NBA Cup, I think, made people recalibrate expectations, and then they trade for Siakam, and it's like, all right, like, what do you got? But I think this season, kind of like the Thunder, frankly, it's about what do we got here and what are we going to do now? And so I think he could suck and you could still be like, great, they learned something, but I don't think it's going to be very easy for him. And they're really small, whereas Boston's not. Nembhard and Neesmith, like they are going to be smaller at every single position. So that's not ideal either, outside of Turner, which is why I highlighted him.
Yeah, I'm going to go Celtics in 6, and I could see it being Celtics in 5, honestly. I could see it being the same thing.
Yeah, I had 6 in mind too. I like picking the team that I just think is flat out better to close on the road if I think they're better. I feel like everybody always cops out and you have to pick a result that ends with the team that's going to win closing out at home unless you're picking 7. And it's like, if you just think they're better, they're better. It's why nobody picks sweeps. Teams sweep each other. I don't know what to tell you. But I did pick Boston in 4 against the Cavs and got it wrong. So maybe I'm not the best person to say. So I'll go 6.
I mean,
I'll go 6.
Spiritually, you got that one right. I think that felt like a sweep.
Yeah, it did.
It felt like Boston has had 2 sweeps, if we're being honest.
So you're ready for a Pacers-Mavs finals, is what you're saying?
I don't think Adam Silver's ready for a Pacers-Mavs final.
Yeah.
I would drive to Indianapolis for one of those games, though. I think.
Okay.
I could probably get.
You're going to drive for Eastern Conference Finals?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe it could. Oh, I guess bump Jack. I mean, I could say Jack's place.
Perfect. There you go. Right outside.
Yeah, him or Tony East. Shout out. We'll figure that out. That's a good idea. All right, we're gonna end there. The early odds, by the way, BetMGM, Celtics -1600 to win the East. Pacers plus 4,000. So.
I believe the game 1 spread is Celtics -10. That feels like incredibly disrespectful to the Pacers. Like I mean, it's not like Boston has just been like piling up these 30-point wins every night. Like, come on.
No, they're not like, it's not like they even like the game 5 win against Cleveland. It's like Marcus Morris was cooking them. It was like, what are we doing here? And that was a little bit. And
weird. And they won by what,
like
15, 18? I mean,
it took a little bit though. It was
a
like,
big win, but like to go right from that to like they're gonna just destroy game 1 of the conference finals. It's like, I don't know. Now I'm not betting on it. I wouldn't, but I thought that just felt like if I was a Pacers fan, that's bulletin board material.
Yeah, that's got to be up there. We're gonna end there. I'm Chris Manning. That's been Brendon Kleen. Brendan will be back with our guy Wes Goldberg on Wednesday for the Wednesday edition. I'll be with Wes on Friday. That's our schedule for the week. This has been the Just Basketball Show for Monday, May 20. Hope you enjoyed the hoops, because goddamn, they were really good. We'll talk to you next time.